tomorrow. Tomorrow? That's what I said, tomorrow. Okay, I have everyone ready. Those were the words that started it all. That is, the words that started the actual cleansing and recycling of Africa. After all, it was long overdue. Long overdue. After World War II and the decolonization of most of those tragic lands, Africa was given her head, her window of opportunity to get up and even with the rest of the awakening world. Henry Schlesinger and his few acquaintances had been working long and hard with the three-sided Globe Corporation and the Earth Currency Trust to aid Africa in bringing about her comeuppance. But there had always been this contingency. Since Africa was apparently not capable of any comeuppance, tomorrow was sure to come to Africa, and it would come with horror. The boardroom was in a nondescript hotel in some minor city some 200 miles southeast of Moscow. And why shouldn't this very important meeting be here? After all, the big red bear had been present at all of those earlier gatherings. No, there were not any premiers, prime ministers, kings, or presidents here. But there were people of power, tremendous power. They were the people who controlled the puppet leaders for these past hundreds of years. They were the ones who would orchestrate Africa's tomorrow. It had always been the intent of this group to allow the desert jungle land room to expand and grow and become a global competitor and partner of the world market. Certainly the group would benefit because it always played both sides against the middle. It knew before the masses did where the profits and opportunities lay. It did not always know, but it most often did. And even when things went awry, it controlled the redirection of things. This is power in the grossest sense, the power which is absolutely corrupt and therefore evil. Even today, you would laugh at such conspiratorial exposures. The group had intended your response, and of course, that is exactly what it would want of you. The Confederation of Nations, also known as CON, C-O-N, had their ships at sea and their servicemen awaiting deployment. The commanders and generals were awaiting their orders. They knew what they were to do, but they really never had a clue as to why they were going to do it. Again, this is as it had always been with those who waged war, not to question why, but only just to do or die. Carriers and cruisers waded the Atlantic, often around the west coast. Cruisers and carriers idled in the Med to the north, and those nasty subs bringing up the Indian Ocean slipped along the eastern length of Madagascar. The colonial days had accomplished their goals. The tribes and peoples of that vast land began to grasp the concept of independence and the opportunity to try success through their own encumbered efforts. So the group chose to end colonization. So Germany, England, France, Holland, and the others pulled back their governmental influences. But the group still controlled the monies and the support that entered that bottomless pit and made sure that a war in hell replaced those outdated colonial structures. It made sure that inappropriate agricultural techniques would be applied and land wasted and abused. It would assure that controversy and conflict would be inflamed constantly among all the cultural diversity that blanketed that giant elephant ear. As technologies came about, the group deployed the fruits of science as well. Weather moved seemingly at the whim and fancy of Mother Nature, but Tesla had known something of Mother Nature long, long before. And of course, what he knew, the group knew. For sure, the green monkey was the source of that deadly disease of that second half of the 20th century. but that monkey had been infected at the hands of evil men. The antidote was known before the first verified human casualty ever occurred. After 1956, droughts and locust infestations were frequent visitors. Earthquakes were seldom earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions were coerced as needed. The group had decided as early as 1988 that Africa was to be erased from off the present floor plans. The architecture of the game would have to be to tear up those plans, burn those plans, and start anew. The tearing up had begun with the introduction of the infamous virus. There were others to follow. Those that followed were more specifically confined and distributed to that dark continent. From time to time, an outbreak at some other part of the world would be reported for cosmetic purposes, but the real target remained Africa the lost, Africa the forgotten, Africa the hopeless. And the warmongers, while they were always been more than willing to sell their wares to all sides concerned, and Africa, while Africa was more than willing to oblige. Africa played the gullible goat to the T. Africa was more than willing to commit suicide, to cut off all its limbs, head included. Only South Africa remained a grounded island of hope within the boundaries of that killing, dying hell. South Africa was that glittering diamond shining from that mountain of burning, polluted coal. South Africa was the intended, nurtured success. And so it was. But tomorrow, excuse me, tomorrow South Africa would begin a greater success. South Africa would begin its camouflaged aggression. It would begin its program of continental restructuring along its own governmental lines of intent. There would be no nuclear destruction. That was not the intent. The intent was to clean the land, not pollute it. Therefore, the new bomb technology that had just been perfected last year in 2003 and had been field tested in some remote areas of the land, that would be employed. The landfills had already been created to deal with the masses of bodies. The incinerators would evaporate the trash of this garbage can with environmental efficiency. The estimated target end date of human annihilation would be revealingly 3 years and 6 months down the road. Then peace would come to a depopulated Africa. South Africa would then move across the continent, applying its techniques in an effort to bring Africa's varied parts into an equal partnership with the Confederation of Nations. Like I said, CON, C-O-N. Henrik Schlesinger would give the order or redesign that dark and evil place he once called home. He hoped to soon live again in that land of sun-blackened skin called Liberia. He wrung his African hands in hungry anticipation at what his future held. He felt very powerful and special. Being the only black among his culturally and racially diverse group of 4 humans, and the 5th member, none of the others really knew his land of birth, or for that matter, his planet.